And then head for the keys like spring break. Cause I believe that we intervene when it needs great. And go and beat change. Let me talk about it. I get it poppin', poppin'. You probably got a problem. Before they can stop me, gotta cut my power like I'm on a shine. Hold the torch up high in the deep dark. The dream works no matter how bad the pits are. Cause I see how bad the globe is. But they don't know how bad our hope is. They don't know how bad we want this. It ain't where we at, boys, where we going.
I'm putting the YouTube link for the live stream in the chat box if you want to share it.
Gotcha. Very cool.
I believe we will win.
That's it.
And more importantly, I believe we will talk to Nate Dean for a little bit. Nate, good morning.
How's it going?
It's going good, man. It's going really good. So I tell you about my weekend, but let's hear a little bit about your story first.
So from the beginning, like where I'm from, and just
everything.
How I got on Twitter.
People want to know who you are. Where did
Gotcha.
you start? I started in Chicago, 54th and Justine, and that was a long time ago.
Gotcha. Well, I grew up in East Texas. We call it Deep East Texas because it's like almost on the Louisiana line. It's like the eastmost point of Texas. So I grew up in East Texas. My dad was a business owner. He actually had an athletic shoe store, kind of like a Foot Locker. He started in 1989. I'm older than I look. I'm 39. A lot of people peg me for a lot younger than that, but it's pretty cool. Now, when I was younger, I hated it because everybody thought that when you're in high school, nobody wants to be mistaken for a 12-year-old or 14-year-old or whatever. But now it's pretty cool. So, but my dad had his own athletic shoe store and ran that from 1989 up until he died in 2012. And then he passed it on to me and my brother. And we ran it for 4 years after that, and then finally shut it down. We just had too much other stuff going on. I wasn't anywhere near the business, but grew up in that family, in that entrepreneurial atmosphere where, always saw my dad as a provider and someone who was, making it happen for himself, which is something that I was always passionate about. I assumed that one day I would be a business owner in some capacity, and I own several businesses in different ways up until I started my financial education business in 2018 with my business partner. But we live in Southeast Texas now, about an hour and a half northeast of Houston, I would say. And my wife and I, we've been married for almost 18 years now. We've got 4 kids. My oldest son is 16. My youngest son's 13. And my 2 girls are 10 and 7. So they're all about 3 years apart. And there's always something exciting going on in my house. That's for sure.
4 kids, that's a lot. I got 1 dog.
Yeah.
I thought that was a lot.
Yeah, 4 kids can be a lot. What's funny is once we had the 3rd one, that's when it got hard because that's when we were outnumbered. Up until that point, it wasn't too bad. So when we had the 4th one, it was like no big deal because we were already outnumbered. So like and my oldest son was big enough that he could kind of help out a little bit, which was always a big help for us. So having some extra set of hands.
Kibble and water for the kids.
No, it doesn't work that way, unfortunately.
A little more complicated.
Yeah, they surprisingly, they require a lot of attention. So
weird that way, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
I mean, the worst part of my day is at 4:30 in the morning, my dog comes into the bedroom and starts crying. He wants to go for a walk.
Yeah, my dogs sleep inside, but they're far enough on the other end of the house that if they start whining, I don't hear them. I don't hear them until it's time to get up. Now, sometimes my wife will hear them every now and then, and she'll nudge me, and she's like, "Hey, dogs want to go out or something." But for the most part, they don't bother me too much.
I got to tell you, I was super lucky with my dog. From day one, he knew how to use the doggy door like a charm.
That's awesome.
Yeah, like that was the best part. Like when he never peed in the house or pooed in the house, I was like, fucking miracle. Like the very first day, like it was crazy. I had the doggy door on the patio, and he literally just went through, did his business, and came back. I was like, oh shit. Now I got him from the shelter, and he'd been adopted like 3 times, and he was like only about 5 months old, a little lanky. But
Yeah.
the other 3 people were like, oh, he kept chewing up things. I'm like, he's a puppy. Give him a bone.
Yeah, people don't think about, like, they get because we've been married so long, we've had several dogs over the years, and my wife, she always just gets hooked on the idea of having a puppy, and you quickly forget, every time you want a puppy, you quickly forget the nightmare of house training a dog and just how much is involved in that process. So
Yeah,
yeah, I don't
a
have
lot
any
to train a puppy.
puppies right now, so hopefully it'll be a while, so I'll have to go through that again.
So talk a little bit about your training, your financial training.
So our story goes back to my business partner and I. We grew up together. We went to junior high and high school together. His name's Brandon Goswick, and he's on Twitter. Shout out to Brandon. Yeah, he's on Twitter also, just not near as active as I am, and he likes it that way. So when it comes to our business, I'm kind of the face of things. That's what people see first coming into it, and then they get introduced to him kind of behind the scenes. But we were accountability partners back in 2017. We were just holding each other accountable in different areas of our lives. I actually have a ministry background, and he was a middle school principal at the time. And so we were just holding each other accountable in different areas of our lives. And it was through that accountability that we came across this financial concept, a very virtually unknown concept called infinite banking. And it's called infinite banking.
Okay.
And so I came across this book written, the name of the book's called Becoming Your Own Banker by Nelson Nash. And he was the one that discovered this concept. And the gist of the concept is there is a way to properly structure a dividend paying whole life insurance policy to create your own private banking system where you earn interest off your own dollars even when you're spending them, which is unheard of.
What do you mean?
And it's all done through the principle of leverage, being able to leverage your cash in a safe asset class to where it's earning interest, to go out and earn interest on it somewhere else simultaneously in some situations. So you can use it for acquiring, vehicles, homes, all kinds of different things, just depending on what you want to use it for in your life. But we have some clients who invest in real estate, invest in the market, invest in crypto, all these other things, but they're running it through the lens of infinite banking through their cash flow system, which is what we call it, so that they're actually leveraging their cash in multiple places and earning interest in multiple places, which is, like I said, that's unheard of.
So give an example. I give you 10 grand. What happens?
Yeah. Well, let me give you this example. And if you ever go through the course, you'll see this example again, but this is one that's pretty simple that I use a lot, especially on Twitter. If let's say you saved up 30 grand for a car and you call me up, you're like, Nate, I got 30 grand. I got my car picked out. I'm fixing to run down to the dealership to pick it up. And I'm like, Chris, man, I'm glad you did that, but I don't want you to go straight to the dealership just yet. This is what I want you to do instead. Go down to your local bank, drop that 30 grand into a CD, certificate of deposit. And let's say for this example, the CD is going to pay you 4%. And then what I would tell you to do, yeah, exactly. I know that sounds crazy. I use these numbers for I use these numbers for a reason. So then what I would tell you to do is turn right back around at the same bank and borrow 30,000 from the bank using your CD as collateral. That's called a collateralized loan. It's the safest loan any bank can make because they already have your money.
These days, bankers will not even do that. They'll actually look at your credit score, and even a collateralized loan, they want 80% loan to value.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. So the CD example is really just something tangible that people can wrap their mind around. but because the whole idea behind this example is just to teach people how leverage actually works. So so let's say for this example, you're earning 4% on the CD. They're going to charge you 6% to cover some of their costs on the loan. So you get your money, you go down to the dealership just like you were going to do. You just added an extra step to the process. You get your car, but now you got a payment back to the bank, 704.55 over 48 months if we amortize it out over 4 years. So after making your payments back to the bank, you would have paid the bank $33,818, which means you would have paid $3,818 in interest. But in that example, because of leverage and compounding interest, your CD, which was earning at 4%, even though you were being charged 6% on the loan, your CD is now worth $35,096. You actually came out on the positive side of the interest because you're properly applying the principle of leverage. Now, the reason that I use those numbers is because that's roughly what you can expect inside of your policy when you're using your policy to go out and leverage it for other things in your life.
When you say policy, are you talking about life insurance?
Yes. Yeah. Dividend paying whole life insurance is the way infinite banking is set up.
So you buy $10,000 worth of dividend whole life insurance policy. You've got life insurance, so if you die, somebody can pay for the burial.
Right.
And now you can borrow against that. Can you borrow 100%?
You can't, because if you could do that, money launderers would be lining up left and right. In fact, as a life insurance agent, I have to go through anti-money laundering training once a year to maintain my insurance license, because it is so attractive to money launderers, this idea of running your money through a system like this. So there's a tiered waiting period before you can access all of the cash that you're putting in. The number one principle that Nelson teaches is you have to be willing to think long term. So when you are putting money into a business, as an example, if you were starting a business and you were investing into that business, in most cases, traditionally businesses don't turn a profit right away, but we see the vision, we see the value of what that's going to bring long term. And that's why we continue to invest in our companies and invest in our businesses. And it's the same way with a dividend paying whole life insurance policy. The only difference is the growth is guaranteed. It's guaranteed by the insurance company. It's guaranteed by the 100-year plus track record of the life insurance industry as a whole.
So what kind of dividends do your whole life policies pay currently?
So your contractual rate of interest is going to be around 4%, and then the dividends pay on top of that.
What do you mean?
So your early capitalization years, you're probably going to be averaging somewhere between 4 to 6% on your cash value that's being created. So, but the good news is, as that money is growing, you're still able to go out and use it on other things.
At what percentage though? What can you borrow against it? 80%?
Whatever your cash value is, you can borrow up to 100% of that. So your cash value is
if I give you 10,000, what's my cash value?
You're going to be able to borrow or leverage about 55% of that in the first year. In the second year, it's going to be about 75%. The third year, it's going to be about 95%. But by the fourth year, that's the mark of efficiency that we're trying to hit as quickly as possible. So by the fourth year, every time you put $1 in, you got access to more than $1 back out.
And what does a $10,000 life insurance policy buy you? Like 10,000?
Well, it depends on your age and your health, because someone my age
still alive.
So my very first policy that I started several years ago, in my mid 30s, was a $10,000 policy, and my death benefit was like $315,000, something like that.
Shit.
So so what
whenever you go, we're good.
Yeah. So what you are essentially doing, if you have a general understanding of real estate, this will make sense. What you're essentially doing is you're building equity into an ever-growing asset that you have control of the equity on, that you get to leverage to create your own personal line of credit that you own and control. So where normally with a line of credit at the bank, you're paying interest to the bank and you get used to that money, but you're paying interest to the bank for that money. With whole life insurance or with infinite banking, you get to earn interest off your own line of credit, which is crazy.
Very cool. How long you been doing this?
We started our company April 2018. So we're 2.5 years since we started our business.
Do you love what you do?
Absolutely. It's a blast, man. It's so much fun. I mean, I've from day one, I never felt like I was working. I get to connect with people every day from all over the country. I get to hear their stories. I get to show them how to create really awesome systems that they can take advantage of, that changes their family tree for generations, metaphorically, obviously. But yeah, it's a ton of fun.
Do you teach people a little bit about how to do what you do?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So we have an associate program for any existing client that we have. If they want to be a part of our team, then we will mentor them and teach them how to teach others about infinite banking.
Very cool. Very cool. So how do you come across the people that you look for to sell this product to? Because a lot of people think of life insurance as something you need if you've got a family.
Right. Well, the simple answer is if you have a need for cash in your life, then you need a cash flow strategy, or you need a system of leverage to run that cash through. Because when you start to apply the principle of leverage in your life, your dollars automatically become stronger. And so if you have stronger dollars than your neighbor next door, then who's going to win the game in the grand scheme of things? So where your neighbor is getting eaten up with taxes and inflation and everything like that, if you have a system of leverage where you're continuing to earn interest off your own dollars, most people earn interest off of 5 to 10% of their income their entire life. And that's about it. But with infinite banking, over time, you can work up to the point where you're earning interest off 100% of your income. Imagine how much stronger you become just because of that alone. So creating stronger dollars in your life where it's not being eroded by inflation and by taxes is something that's really powerful. So anybody, regardless of age, can take advantage of infinite banking. And you don't have to be sitting on a ton of capital to get started, because it can be scaled to whatever your existing resources are. So if you got a little bit of cash flow, a few $100 a month can actually get you started.
Have you thought about writing a book about this called Infinite Banking? Is that a term you came up with?
Well, I mean, it's no. But Nelson came up with the term. Nelson wrote the book, Becoming Your Own Banker. He is the creator and discoverer of the concept infinite banking.
Nelson's your partner, right?
Nelson Nash was the original discoverer of the concept. Nelson Nash actually passed away last year. He was about 88 years old.
Rest in peace, Nelson.
Yeah, he's man, that guy. Unfortunately, I never got to shake his hand, but my mentors, the ones that taught us, they were personally mentored by Nelson. So we like to say that we come from high stock when it comes to being good stewards of the information.
Somebody just asked, what is this? I'm telling them, Nate, teaching you how to be your own bank. So let's talk a little bit about your roadmap. What are some of the things that you have planned for the next 6, 12, and 18 months?
So right now we're expanding our associate program. We have some new marketing channels that we're exploring also. We've connected with some influencers and some different social media platforms that we're building relationships with, and we hope to leverage that into creating a whole new stream of clients coming through. We also have our mentor program for infinite banking coaches that we're working on and developing, because there's not really a good system out there for teaching people how to teach others.
You know, it's funny you bring that up, because I personally believe that the college model is going to go through massive disruption over the coming 5 years. I think people start to learn that I don't have to pay this university $30 grand a semester to learn something and then hope I get a chance to make some money from that knowledge. I can just go buy the knowledge and apply that knowledge today, tomorrow, next week. And
Right.
that's one of the things that we're doing with Masterclass Millionaires is we're putting together a group, a closed group where people can literally make connections with people that are either a millionaire that has a masterclass to teach them how to do something, or they want to become a millionaire. Because in reality, what does everyone want to do in life? Be financially free, be wealthy.
Right.
And that network determines in many cases your net worth.
Absolutely. Well, you mentioned a minute ago about how we're teaching this, how we're reaching people. And our biggest social media presence is actually through Twitter. And Twitter was kind of a fluke thing at first because when we started our business, naturally, whenever you start a business, you reach out to friends and family, the people who are closest to you. Hey, we started a business, but then we got on Facebook and we started doing some live videos where people would tune in and share them every now and then. And we started getting a little bit of traction there. And then it was December 2018. My business partner, he was already texting me tweets from guys he was following on Twitter. I didn't have anything to do with Twitter whatsoever. But he was texting me tweets from guys like Ed Lattimore, Chris Johnson, AJ Cortez, those guys. And, he was sending me this stuff that he would see that they would put out. And it was just, good mindset, personal development type stuff that gets you pumped up, stuff relating to money and fitness and all this other stuff. So one day I told him, I was like, you know what, instead of you sending me all these tweets, I'm just going to get on Twitter and start following these guys myself. So December 2018, I got on Twitter and I was just hooked from day one. I couldn't believe how much free content people were just putting out there. And I came away that day because I was on Twitter all day that day. And I came away with two things. One, recognizing, because I've been studying mindset and personal development for several years, I realized that I had a lot of value to bring to other people. And then also I saw an opportunity to grow our business by just making connections with people and teaching them, about this completely unknown concept to pretty much anybody on Twitter right now. Well, anybody who's on Money Twitter, the community that we call Money Twitter, whatever. I don't even know what the actual term is, but Money Twitter is something people refer to quite often. But this community, this circle corner of Twitter, I didn't see anybody out there talking about infinite banking, talking about what I was talking about. And so started making connections with people through that, and word of mouth started spreading, made some connections with some high profile people, and they started shouting me out because they saw value in what I was doing. We talked about Chris Johnson earlier. So Chris Johnson was the first big account that gave me a boost. It was December 23rd, 2018. I'll never forget it because it was just a crazy moment. At that point, I was on Twitter for a couple of weeks. I had, I don't know, maybe like 50, 70 followers, something like that. It wasn't very much. I was just kind of putting along, growing. But I had reached out to him and I'd started teaching him about leveraging cash flow strategy and infinite banking and all that stuff. And December 23rd, he shouts me out and he says, I'll publicly vouch for this dude, Chronicles Nate. He led me to learn about a whole other side of money. And if you're into finance, you need to give him a follow. And my phone just started blowing up that day like crazy. A lot of people started following me that day. And that was kind of a catalyst. And it started snowballing from there into more and more opportunities to connect with people. And so December 2018, I'm less than 2 years since I started my account. And I got, I don't know, like 32,000 followers. I'm not the fastest growing account on Twitter, but I'm not the slowest either.
Did you get a chance to get Chris set up with a whole life policy?
Not yet. He's made the comment a few times that he's, that he was interested and wanted to look into it more.
I would think at his net worth, it would probably make sense since he's got a child.
You would think so. You ought to tell him that the next time you see him.
I think I'll send him this video and say, yo, Chris.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Buy some infinite banking.
I'll never stop talking about that, and because I'll always be appreciative of him doing what he did. He didn't have to do that, but he did, and it's made a massive difference in our business. Gave us a ton of credibility, that's for sure.
Cool. So it's interesting you bring up Twitter. I want to show you something that'll blow your mind a little bit. So I've always been a big fan of people that do what I call buzz marketing. And right now, the biggest buzz in the world is the election, the upcoming election.
Yeah.
So on Friday night, I'm sitting around doing, work. And out of nowhere, I send out this tweet that gets picked up by Donald Trump Jr. and some other political people. And it basically was a prediction from a guy that's been pretty accurate at predicting the election. His name's Kevin McCullough. And I just asked Donald Trump what his thoughts were. And it got over 8,800. It's actually almost over 10,000 now retweets, 21,000 likes.
Wow.
2.61 million impressions over the weekend. So I thought to myself, when something goes viral and you want to dominate Twitter, you got to find a way to monetize that. Yeah. So what did I do? I did this. I'll show you something interesting. All right, let's see. Where's my guy? I think my guy's here. No, he's not there. There he is. Trump winning mindset. Learn about Trump's business and life successes building an iconic brand. You will know how to master buzz marketing and dominate Twitter from the expert himself. That's probably Chris right there calling me. My whole life is about winning. I don't lose often. I almost never lose. Donald J. Trump. With this mindset, you're unstoppable. They can only hope to contain you. The art of not giving a fuck. It's actually, I did a ton of research while writing this book. It launches in a couple hours today. And today we find so many viral dominating tweets like the ocean spray man. Did you ever see that video that's going crazy? Guys on a skateboard drinking spray.
It's crazy. Yeah.
It's gotten over 100 million views. And the ocean spray man that people embrace simply because we honor those who do not care what others think. If you think, that guy's just on a skateboard, he doesn't care if people, think something about his tattoo or the fact that he's just skateboarding or even the fact that he's drinking cranberry juice. They are free, and we all secretly wish to be free. That's the one thing in doing my research for this book that Trump and Dave Portnoy and other big people that have large audiences on Twitter have learned is that if you're going to dominate Twitter, you have to show people that you are mentally free, that you are free to say whatever you want, and that you're not out to hurt anyone's feelings, but you are free. You are a free-minded individual, and that is one of the most powerful things that people can learn from Trump's winning mindset. And he is a winner. I mean, for all the media attacks that he gets, he has built an iconic brand. Like all over the world, if you say the word Trump, people know that you're referring to Donald J. Trump. And he's literally figured out a way to build his brand on Twitter by dominating it. And one of the ways that he dominates it is because he is a free thinking individual that literally lets his thoughts out on Twitter.
Yeah, it's funny when you brought up the part about being unstoppable, that quote from Trump, it goes back to my walkout music at the beginning. I believe that we will win. That's something that's really powerful for me because for so long in my life, I was kind of crossing my fingers, just hoping it was going to work out. But that was because I was following conventional wisdom when it came to finances. And it wasn't anything that I was confident in, but what gave me the most peace and the most hope that I've ever had in my life is when I understood how money really works and how when you understand how leverage works and you understand the concept of infinite banking, you automatically get this feeling of it's not a question of if it's going to work out. It's just when it's going to work out. Like I know that no matter what, that things are going to be okay. I have the roadmap to success. I see it in front of me. I know all of the things that I'm going to be doing in the next few years to make sure that I get there. And on top of that, if for some crazy reason something does happen to me, my family is taken care of.
I think that's all great. I think a lot of people can learn from what you're doing. How can people find you?
My biggest presence is Twitter. At Chronicles Nate is my Twitter handle. Chronicles of Nate, if you want to search for me on Twitter. So that's the biggest place that you can find me. And the reason that it's Chronicles of Nate is because when I started Twitter, it was a journey. Like I saw that as a journey. I remember when I told my business partner, I said, "Hey, I'm going to start a Twitter account, and I'm going to grow it. Like I'm going to be one of these big accounts one day." And I remember him saying, "Man, if anybody can do it, you can." And that was all the confidence I needed to go out and make it happen. And I did get some bumps and some help along the way, but my success and my growth on Twitter, the way I saw it was I'm inevitable. Like it's going to happen no matter what.
You're unstoppable.
And exactly.
It's funny.
So,
That's part of the winning mindset that I talk about in the book is if you look at your life as being a destiny of greatness, that greatness is your destiny. At the end of the road is you having a great life. If that's your mindset, then you're going to have a winning mindset. And if everything that you spout onto Twitter or out of your mouth are winning mindset thoughts, the inevitable is that your life will be great.
yeah, I remember a tweet I put out several months ago, and it just said, "I wouldn't bet against me." And man, it just, a lot of people shared it and commented on it or whatever. But I mean, that's just my mindset is don't you bet against me, you're going to lose.
Yeah, that's it's funny. A friend of mine always talks about you're better off betting on yourself in life than anything else because you have the ability to cash in on every single bet on yourself.
Yep.
You're the driving force of that success.
Yeah, and so my Twitter journey, originally when I started Twitter, I was just reaching out to people. I started making comments about money that people never heard before, so they were naturally curious to find out what the heck I was talking about because I'm not like everybody else when it comes to money and the way I talk about it. So people started responding to comments I was making. Started getting a lot of direct messages. So I was making these one-on-one meetings, like Zoom meetings, essentially, where I would share everything that we would teach someone about infinite banking for an hour to hour and a half, and which I loved doing. It was a ton of fun, but I became in such demand that my time just ran out. I couldn't get to everybody. So it got to the point where we had to do something to leverage our time more efficiently. And the course that we sell on Twitter, which is a gateway to our educational process of learning about infinite banking and working with us through our coaching program, all of that was just born out of a necessity to get my time back so that I could actually coach people the way I needed to. So everything in the course is just to get them up to the level of education that they need to be at. So when I get on the phone with them, they've got high level questions that I can address and help answer so that it doesn't take long and they get it. They understand it. And then they're ready to move forward.
Where's your course? Is it on the link?
It's in my pin tweet at the top of my profile. And then it's also in my bio. It says My Money Course or something like that.
There's one in there that says your newsletter.
Well, the one right above that should say My Money Course. There should be a link to it.
Oh, I see it.
Yeah. So the name of the course, we named it Holy Shift, Rethinking Your Money Paradigm, because it is a righteous shift in your behavior and your thinking, because you're not going to be thinking like everybody else going forward. I mean, you separate yourself from the masses when you start using infinite banking.
What platform are you doing this on? Kartra?
Kartra, yeah.
What's Kartra?
It is a lot like ClickFunnels, but more robust when it comes to features. And from what I understand, it might be a little bit cheaper. I haven't really priced them out, but a friend of mine was already using Kartra, and he was really big on it, really bullish on it as far as what he was able to accomplish with it. So we decided to check it out, and it's a good platform.
That's awesome. All right, little word association.
All right.
What's your favorite, Cheetos or Doritos?
I guess it would have to be Cheetos. I don't know. I like the crunch.
Gotta love Cheetos. Pizza or burritos?
Pizza.
Pizza.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who's
it'd
going
have
to
to
win
be
the
pizza.
election, Trump or Biden, or is it Harris? Who's running, Biden or Harris?
You know, if they don't steal it, it's going to be Trump in a landslide.
In a landslide. Why?
Just look at everything that's happening right now. I mean, the writing is on the wall. You look at the rallies, the people who are supporting Biden and Harris right now, and it's very obvious that they don't have the support. The media wants you to think that they do, but when you just kind of peel back the layers and look, it's obvious that they don't have the support. So if they don't, like I said, if they don't steal it, it's Trump by a landslide.
Yeah, it's interesting how the media has gone with the narrative that there's no, that mail-in voting is safe and fair. It's crazy. Like, I'm from Chicago, and Chicago's had a Democratic mayor now for, God, maybe 59 years in a row. And trust me, it's not because there's more Democrats in Chicago than there are Republicans. Everyone knows in Chicago that they get a lot of fraudulent votes harvested. The old saying in Chicago is vote early and vote often. And, I think as a country, the biggest thing we have to look for as we move forward is a better way to literally, like, you can do everything from your phone. Your phone can verify your ID. It can, it can do all these things. Why not vote? Now, granted, maybe not everyone has a mobile phone these days, which is fine. I get that. So maybe those people can go walk in and vote themselves. But I think if we make voting more electronic, we can eliminate a lot of the voter fraud that exists. You can electronically verify an ID. You can electronically timestamp and date that this person voted. And you can realize that this person doesn't have the opportunity to vote again. There's no multiple voting for the same person. Whereas with paper, all that stuff is hard to enforce.
Yeah, a dead person can't own a cell phone.
That is true. Dead people are voting like crazy this year, I tell you that.
Exactly.
I know. It's funny. Judicial Watch literally eliminated off the California voting roster 1.5 million dead people or people that weren't citizens. And that's actually pretty impressive when you think about it, that California lets that many people stay on their voting poll rolls for each election that aren't even alive.
Yeah, that's not surprising.
All right, so dogs or cats? Which one's your favorite?
You know what? I have 3 dogs and I have 2 cats.
That's kind of weird. How do the cats get along with the dogs? Okay.
Yeah, they all get along great. I like my cats better than my dogs personally.
Really?
I was always a dog person growing up.
I'll be honest with you. I don't think your cat likes you that much. Cats, for whatever reason, they always act like when you come home, they're like, yeah, I'll get to you a little bit later. Okay.
Yeah.
Whereas dogs, when you get home, they're like, you're home.
Yeah. Yeah. One is definitely more open to physical touch than the other. Like, one of them will like come up and he'll get in your lap and he'll want to be loved and all that stuff. The other one, it has to be on his watch. Like, if you try to pick him up and he's not ready, he's not gonna have any bit of it. But sometimes
cats are a little weird. There's something
weird
with cats.
But I'll be laying in bed sometimes, I might be doing something on my phone and he'll just like come up and lay on my chest where I can't even see my phone. I'm like, what are you doing, man? So anyways, but for some reason I like my cats better than my dogs right now.
How many dogs you got? 3?
3 dogs.
It's got to be like a middle linebacker and 2 outside linebackers coming up.
You know what? And going back to what I said about my wife earlier, all three of our dogs are because my wife saw this dog somewhere and went, "Oh, I've got to have that one." So
Get them out of the shelter? What?
let's see. One of them we rescued from a hurricane.
Wouldn't be a proper talk if I didn't bring this guy along.
So we rescued one from a hurricane. One was just a family trying to get rid of puppies. Actually, the other two were just families trying to get rid of puppies. So we rescued one.
So it's funny. I go to the shelter and I was volunteered to walking dogs throughout the day. And there's this shelter that is a kill shelter. And she calls up and she's like, hey, we got this puppy. He's on day 30. Day 30 means, the next day is adios amigos, which is hard to handle when it's a puppy. I'm like, puppies,
Yeah.
they always get adopted. So I'm like, what's wrong with this one? She's like, he's a little aggressive, a little chewy. And I'm like, she's like, can we send him over to you? Because this was a no-kill shelter. So I said, sure, bring him over. I'm walking dogs today. So Jesse comes in the door and there's 5 little groups of dogs and families interviewing dogs. Now, usually when dogs see other dogs, they like just go crazy. Jesse comes from the door to a park bench that I was sitting at in the very back of this big area and warehouse area. Comes flying up to me, starts licking my face, going crazy, passed up everybody. And I'm a religious man, so I looked up and I was like, "Is this a sign?" Sure as heck, God doesn't decide to answer me. And I'm like, "Is this a sign?" Still doesn't answer me. Dog's licking me all over. So I had a leash in one hand and I had a tennis ball in the other hand. I took him out in the little back area and I threw the ball. Never seen a dog so happy in my life to play catch. Like literally, he's got probably 12 balls hidden around this house. And on any given day, he will bring that ball up to 100 times to play catch.
Huh.
Literally his funnest thing in life. Funny thing is, I thought it was like a sign from God that I was supposed to adopt him. So that was a Wednesday and I had to fly for a speech to California that Friday. So I said to myself, if he's still there and hasn't been adopted by Friday, I'm going to adopt him. So I go in before my flight. It's like 1:00 in the afternoon. My flight's at 5. And I talked to the lady that runs the shelter and I'm like, hey, did Jesse get adopted? She's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, I'm good. I'm glad. I'm happy. I'm going to go walk some of the dogs back there. She's like, okay. So I grabbed some of the leashes, open up the door, the first big cage. Here's this lanky little lab just looking through the cage. It's Jesse. I'm like, hey, didn't they take him? She's like, don't worry about it. She goes, just pay the $60 and he's yours. And so I took him home, but I thought to myself, I'm like, I didn't plan for this because it was like 1:00 and he's rancid. He smells horrible. So I'm like, I got to figure something out. So I took him to the groomers to get like washed and bathed. And then I needed to buy some time. And then I had to like start calling people. I'm like, hey, I just adopted a dog today. I need you to watch him for 2 days while I go to LA. And I'm like, I literally couldn't find anyone. Finally, my next door neighbor, I'm like, hey, feel like house sitting my house for 2 days. And they've got dogs too. They live right next door. So they ended up staying with Jesse. He had a blast with them. And it's been downhill ever since. Great dog. Just, the funny thing is when you got a puppy, the reason they brought him back to the shelter is they said he kept chewing up things. Yeah, he got one of my shoes early on, but you just have to have those like come to Jesus talks. You're like, listen, can't eat the shoe. And we got past all that.
Yeah.
Just takes a little time. Dogs are like people, sometimes they just have to hear the same thing after a while.
Yeah.
It's interesting too, because I think what you're teaching is important for people to hear it once in a while and learn that, hey, it's important for you to have your money work for you.
Yeah. Well, it's something that I think is really funny is conventional wisdom teaches you to stay away from whole life insurance. Probably the most two prominent heads out there when it comes.
Wait a second. Why does conventional wisdom teach you to stay away from whole life? I've never heard that.
So if you listen to Dave Ramsey and Susie Orman, those are probably the most popular personal finance people in the mainstream. They say buy term, invest the difference. So a couple different reasons why term insurance is so popular. One is it is the number one profit center for an insurance company because about 0.5% of those policies actually ever pay out. So the odds are always on the house on those types of policies. So naturally, the insurance company wants to sell a lot of term insurance because that's their number one profit center. Now, the other side, the model of buy term, invest the difference was perpetuated by someone who was trying to sell mutual funds years and years ago, which was A.L. Williams. And so this
A.L.
model
Williams,
or this,
where's that name from? What was that? A.L. Williams, wasn't it an insurance agency?
yeah, something like that.
Prime America.
Well, he was,
wasn't it Prime America?
well, yeah, it was before Prime America. Yeah, so it turned into Prime America. But anyways, it was buy term, invest the difference because term insurance was an easy sell. You know, it's a little bit of premium for a lot of death benefit. So, but also what that does is it fuels the machine of the stock market too. So it's in people who have a vested interest in the stock market or in feeding business to financial brokers or feeding business to themselves or whatever the case may be, then it's a great model for them. Buy term, invest the difference. So that is most of conventional wisdom that's out there is about, you know, you don't need whole life insurance because you need to be invested in the market. But what I find interesting is in my 2.5 years since I started teaching this, since we started our company, I've worked with several different millionaires and multimillionaires. And what almost every one of them already have in common is the fact that they have whole life insurance already. They were just never taught how to be their own bank with it. They were never taught how to use it properly in their life. If whole life insurance really was...
Let me ask you a question.
Right.
If you buy term and then you invest it in the stock market, you could also borrow against those assets too, can't you?
Well, you can, but you're not giving yourself the characteristics of infinite banking, which is certainty and control. Certainty is knowing that your money is getting uninterrupted compounding growth no matter what. The control is the fact that you actually can, it's going to be there when you need it. So you're always going to have access to those funds at different times. But if it's money that is...
That depends on what you invest in. Like there's certain things in the stock market that give you those features also, right?
Well, yeah. Okay. So if the rates were the exact same, if we're talking about the identical rates and just doing an apples to apples comparison, let's say you had money that was invested in the market and then you had money over here that was in whole life insurance and they were growing at the same rate. The difference is if you do it right with whole life insurance, you're never going to pay taxes on your growth, where you are going to pay taxes over here in the market.
Oh, so there's tax benefits that are not associated with buying stocks.
Yeah, it grows tax-free inside your policy.
Okay, so that's a huge benefit right there. Hey, by the way, I'm sending you a link to Balages. He's a great guy to follow on Twitter. And I think you'd find that he's kind of like the Ron Paul of Twitter.
Nice.
Yeah.
I dig Ron Paul.
Yeah, Ron's pretty impressive. He's literally the president we should have at least had at one time in our lives. But
you know what? Ironically, Ron Paul in 2013 was the guest speaker at the Infinite Banking Convention.
I'm not surprised. He's a great speaker. He recently had I think he had like a stroke in the middle of an interview. But I've met Ron
I heard about that
times, and I think the world of him and his son.
I wrote him in when Romney was running. I wrote Ron Paul in that year. I couldn't bring myself to vote for Romney.
Romney was never a real character or candidate. He's always been easily bought and paid for. He does things for the almighty dollar, not for the American citizen.
Yeah.
So it's amazing. If we got term limits for some of these politicians like Congress and Senate, I think we would see less lifetime politicians. And the real challenge that America has is our political system. It's not broke, but it definitely has some big cracks in it that need fixing.
Yeah.
And
well, it doesn't make any sense to me that the president has term limits, but Congress doesn't. Like,
Well,
that,
I definitely think the president should have term limits because
right.
especially some of these presidents. I mean, Trump's a great guy, but he's 74 years old. And Biden, what is he? 78. There's literally, there's no way we can elect a president 78 years of age who will, during his presidency, be 79, 80, 81, and 82. Those are years where you're just physically and mentally not capable or fit to run. Like it's literally the highest job in America. It's like the highest stress, the most responsibility. That job, you got to have your wherewithal, your wits. And, these presidents that we're electing, they're really old. And we got to start electing, better candidates. Like Tulsi Gabbard, veteran, healthy, mentally sharp, very good candidate. These are people, we got to start looking at the wellness and the health of the people that we're electing, because this is a big job. Like you're not being elected to run Twitter, you're being elected to run country.
Yeah. Well, and I'm all for term limits for president. I just think if the president has them, then Congress should have them too. So
yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I find that the fact that we don't have term limits for Congress is insane. Like you look at people like Nancy Pelosi, who's been in office for like 40 years. I mean, she's just mentally old. Like it's like watching a rickety grandmother talk at the podium, and that all her fuses and light bulbs aren't all lit at the same time.
So I put this out on Twitter the other day about Joe Biden, and I said, Joe Biden was a senator for 36 years. Delaware, you're telling me for 36 years you didn't have anybody better? Like, how's that possible?
Well, the funny thing is, the jobs that he created that were the biggest paying jobs were for his family and his son.
Right.
He always talks about the jobs he created. While him and Obama were in office, we lost hundreds of thousands of manufacturing jobs to China. And that's the crazy thing too, because Ron Paul, I think it was Ron Paul, maybe it was somebody else, he denoted that for the last 20 years, America has been at a trade war with China. But the funny thing is, for whatever reason, it's only recently that we've been talking about this trade war, because for 16 or 17 or 20 years, we've been losing that trade war because nobody acknowledged it. And, now we've got senators, we've got congressmen, and we've got a president that's saying, hey, listen, this shit's got to stop. And especially, I love the fact that Trump is talking about bringing back jobs to Baltimore, which desperately needs those jobs. And medical jobs making masks and cotton swabs and, all the stuff that we exported to China. You can make that stuff in America. I mean, it's not rocket science. And if we can bring those jobs back, we can hopefully get some people that are homeless off the streets. And that's a travesty in America, that if we've got money for the military, which I love the military, if we've got money for the military, if we've got money to give the arts, like the Kennedy Center to receive $25 million, well, if we can give money to the arts, before we give that check, we better start building housing, affordable housing for the homeless, because there's people that are living on the streets and dying on the streets. And that's one of the saddest things in America. And America should really be committed to solving that problem before we go anywhere else in the world to try and solve other people's problems. Because when you go around trying to solve all the world's problems and you ignore the problems at home, you start realizing that there's people, good people, that are homeless, that are living on the streets and dying on the streets.
Yeah. Well, and it's arrogant to assume that we understand other people's problems. We go into these other places and we're like, oh, we're going to fix your system or whatever. And some people are just like, but you don't understand us. You don't know how to fix our system.
Well, that's the funny thing too, is we don't have to fix other people's systems. Everyone wants to talk about fixing the Middle East. Well, guess what? Let's not fix the Middle East. Let's let the Middle East fix themselves. They're grown adults. They should know how to fix themselves. And that's the beautiful thing that's happening in the Middle East right now, is you're starting to see that they're coming together, not with our nudging and pushing and telling them what to do, but with themselves. They're starting to create peace amongst each other, partially because of economic reasons. I think the economic benefits of peace are starting to settle in the Middle East, and that's a good thing to see. I'm glad to see that there's some peace developing in the Middle East.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how things play out in the next few years, depending on how things go in the next few months.
That next 30 days. I will
Yep.
say one thing. The one thing that I'm almost 100% sure of, we will not know who the new president is on November 4th. I'm almost 100% sure. The fact that the Democrats have 600 lawyers already ready to file lawsuits over the election tells me that we will not know who the president is on November 4th.
Yeah.
We'll be counting hanging chads again.
Yeah, I was looking, I don't remember if I was on YouTube or Twitter or something like that, but I came across some videos from 2016, and it was a couple days before the election, and it was a compilation of just the media and just how much they were just completely clowning and hating on Trump. And I watched that video and I said, no wonder he hates the media so much.
Well, you have to ask yourself, if the media is wrong this much, if they're constantly wrong this much, being wrong is either an accident or an agenda. My grandmother always said, being wrong is either an accident or an agenda. Pick one or the other, but it's one or the other. And when the media is wrong this much, it's clearly an agenda. Nate,
Yep.
it has been great having you.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me.
When you've got something new to talk about, I can get you back. I've
Definitely.
learned a lot about whole life insurance. I hope everyone else has learned. I'll put your Twitter handle inside the video, and I definitely appreciate your time.
I appreciate you reaching out to me and give me an opportunity. It's always fun to share what drives me and what I'm so excited about. So